Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to Christmas in Arkham 2024. We're all set for the final play-in group before the winners group tomorrow. Today we've got our last three Ancient Ones in the tournament going through their play-in group to see who advances to the winners group. If you've been following along, you'll recognize how everything works, but a quick overview. In Fate of the Elder Gods, we're basically playing as the cults of the Ancient Ones, trying to get our Ancient Ones summoned. And we do that by moving around the altar board at the various locations, performing actions, and maybe stronger actions depending on if we have control. Also preparing using spells to help us along the way. I'm not going to go through the whole 10,000-foot view of I'm not going to go through the whole detail view of how everything works, but I will give a 10,000-foot overview of how each location works, especially as it relates to setting up the game. So we have control of, there are two fate pieces out on the board. We'll be controlling the dark fate piece that starts up at the other worlds, whereas the investigators will control the lighter fate piece. Theirs starts down here at the streets of Arkham. So moving around the locations is to explain how each of them work. At the other worlds, that's where we want to go when we want to sacrifice cultists and advance on the summoning track. At the museum, we can deal with these artifacts out here, and let's go ahead and reveal the first two that are going to be out for us to pick from. So our first choice for an artifact is the Wizard's Grimoire. Max hand size is 5. Or minimum hand size, I should say, is 5. And Enchanted Cane. Exhaust to reroll 1 die. At the ceremony, we get to trigger our Ancient One's Dark Gift, and we get a gate card, which we can use the gate to move to any location that we want that isn't currently occupied. The Streets of Arkham works a little bit different in the solo game, whereas in a multiplayer game, you'd give 2 investigators out to anybody and immediately raid them. But the way it works when we move there is we can actually take 2 investigators off of our lodge. And if we have control of we'll talk about control actions later. At the Gathering, we'll gain 3 cultists back from the Abyss, and then we can move 1 to any location. At the Library, we get to draw 3 spell cards, which is that giant stack, and we can ready an additional spell using the same astral column of spells. Another thing that we see up here is the Monster Reserve. The Beasts from Beyond expansion introduces monsters into the game, along with some of our Ancient Ones, including 2 of the Ancient Ones in the tournament. So let's go through our monsters here. Our first possible monster is a Goat Spawn. On your turn, you may discard 1 token to place the Goat Spawn on a location, then roll 3 dice. For each Lesser Elder Sign, move an investigator to another location. For each Greater Elder Sign, move an investigator to any lodge. We'll just say that return an investigator to the supply. Then choose a cult with at least 1 cultist at this location. That cult becomes cursed. For the solo game, I rule that as to say you can remove a curse. Then the other monster is the Shub-Niggurath. Place the Shub-Niggurath at the other worlds. Once summoned, and at the beginning of each of your turns, roll a die. Somebody's got a car alarm going off. Sorry about that. Roll a die for each investigator present at the Shub-Niggurath's location. For each Cthulhu, return an investigator to the supply. For each Elder Sign, move an investigator to the next clockwise location. After all dice have rolled, move the Shub-Niggurath to the next clockwise location. When the Shub-Niggurath returns to the other worlds, destroy all investigators from your lodge, then remove the Shub-Niggurath from play. But of course, we've got all that set up, so now we need to meet our Ancient One. And our first Ancient One in this group is Yig. His Dark Gift is Carpet of Serpents. Choose any 1 location, roll 5 dice. For each Tentacle or Cthulhu, return 1 cultist to its lodge. For each Lesser or Greater Elder Sign, move an investigator to another location. That's actually pretty dangerous in the, maybe not, because you can pull them back to your lodge and keep away from Elder Sign penalties. So that's probably fine. We'll see what I think of it as we go through this playthrough. And we actually have three. Let me open up Excel here because that's where I've got my spreadsheet of the tournament results. So we have three Ancient Ones here. Well, actually, I take that back. We have two Ancient Ones that we've never played against in either the Summer of Lovecraft or Christmas in Arkham. Yig was our opponent in the Summer of Lovecraft last year. And we won that campaign by a final score of 2-1. I'm just getting my spreadsheet up here, so I've got all that set to go. There we are. So now we can minimize that. And we're all set to get into this tournament. I've got my dice tower that I use. I'll put that up over here, somewhat out of the way. Actually, before we get into that, we need to take a look at Yig's starting hand. So on a yellow Yig, we'll find Cubes of Power, taking red and white. When you're rolling dice, you may add 2 additional dice to this roll, which we could prepare at the ceremony, but I'm not sure. But I have a feeling I'm going to be using a blue for movement. Actually, I have to use a blue for movement first. So our first blue is the Stars Are Right, taking a white and 2 yellow. Assign each cult, including yours, one of the following. Lose an Elder Sign, gain 2 investigators from the Abyss, gain 2 investigators, and become cursed. That I'll probably use for movement. And on our other blue, we've got Sign of the Brotherhood, taking 2 red and a blue. Choose one of their cults to return one of their cultists from the Abyss and place it on their lodge. You return 3 of your cultists from the Abyss and place them in your lodge. With that, we're all set to get into this game, so let's jump in. Up at the other worlds, which is where I'm starting, I'm going to discard you discard a spell card with a color. You discard a spell card, and the color of the spell you discard is the location you can move to. You can use 2 of the same color to move anywhere. In this case, I could have used 2 blue to move anywhere, but here I want to use 1 blue because I want to make a beeline over to the museum and grab this wizard's grimoire and nothing. Actually, before we do that, we do get to roll for temporary control, which gives us a slightly stronger action. So we roll a die. Actually, first we put out an investigator, cultist, and an investigator. Now we roll for temporary control of the location. If we get a Cthulhu, we get temporary control and can take a slightly stronger version of the action. That's a tentacle. It might be a little bit hard to see because of the distance, but that is a tentacle, so we don't get control of the location, which means I will get I'll get the lesser version of the action, which will be taking this wizard's grimoire. And then drawing that up, and then replacing that artifact will be Chamber's Journal. Exhaust, choose a location, then roll a die. On a Cthulhu or tentacle, add an investigator from your lodge to that location. Greater Elder Sign, add an investigator from that location to your lodge. And then we could prepare a spell, but we don't have anything that we're preparing for blue and white. So now when we draw up, we're actually drawing up to 5 cards because that's our minimum hand size. So we have 3 cards here, and now we've got some options starting to open up. On a blue, we find Broken Seal, taking 3 blue. Destroy any 1 Elder Sign. You may sacrifice a cultist at the current altar location to destroy another one. On a white, Enthrall, taking 2 red. Choose a location that another cult controls. Destroy 2 of their cultists from that location. In the solo game, I rule you can use that to target investigators. And on a green, Power Surge, taking a purple, and it has to be at the other worlds. You can't use 2 of the same color. You have to use a purple, the native seal at the other worlds, or a gates card. You can't use 2 of the same color for preparing spells. Until the end of your turn, you control your current location. The investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a red to move up to the library and put an investigator out. And that's it for the investigator's turn in the solo game. I think at the museum, I will discard a white to move down to the ceremony, which will put a cultist and an investigator out. I'll roll for temporary control. which I don't get. That's a greater elder sign. So I get a gate card, and I get to trigger my dark gift. And I think here we'll choose... I think here we're going to choose the library, see if we can maybe get rid of some of these investigators. Because I'm thinking I might want to try to move there next turn. So we roll 5 dice. All right, so that's for each tentacle, I return an occultist to the lodge. For each elder sign, I move an investigator to another location, and I got 2. So I'll move both of these to the streets of Arkham. All right, and I didn't get temporary control of the location, so I don't get the stronger action. With a white and a red, I will go ahead and prepare cubes of power. And then when you prepare a spell, everything from the astral column is discarded, even if you didn't need it all. And then I will draw 2 cards because my minimum hand size is 5. On a red, I will find Gate to the Past, taking 2 blue and a white. At the end of any other cult's turn, you may sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge to take the current location's basic action. And on a green, Transmogrify, taking a white and a yellow. Change any one rolled die to any face. If the new face is Tentacle or Cthulhu, become cursed. Okay. The investigators at the library will discard a blue to move over to the museum and place another investigator. As for my turn, I think we're going to discard the Transmogrify on the green to move over to the Gathering. So put a cultist and an investigator out. Rolling for temporary control, which I don't get once again. I'll gain 3 cultists back from the Abyss. And then I'll move 1 up to the other worlds. Then with a green and a white, I'm not preparing anything there. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will draw me up to 5. So here I will draw on a yellow. Rack, taking 2 white. Destroy 1 investigator from any one location or lodge. At the museum, the investigators will discard a white to move down to the ceremony. Okay, let's see. Looking at my hand here. I could move up to the other worlds now. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Is that what I'm going to do? Yes, actually it is what I'm going to do. So I'll discard my gate card at the Gathering to move up to the other worlds, which will put a cultist and an investigator out. Now, I don't need to roll for temporary control here, and it might, actually, you guys might be able to see it, but I do have 3 cultists to 2 investigators out, so I control the location outright. The reason I've been rolling for temporary control is because I don't have that clear majority. You have to have at least 3 cultists and more than anybody there to control the location outright. So now I get a slightly stronger version. So now I get to roll 3 dice, 1 per cultist that I have there. For each tentacle or Cthulhu I roll, I would sacrifice a cultist into the Abyss and advance that many on my summoning track. Because I have control of the location, for every Cthulhu I roll, I can return a cultist back to my lodge. So let's see what happens here. Nothing. Wow, that was gross. That's 3 lesser elder signs, so I get nothing out of that roll. Let's see. What do I want here? I think here I'm actually going to prepare Gate to the Past using the wild symbol there as a blue. Everything there is gone. And then I will draw 1 card because that's my current hand. So on a green, I will find Dark Pact, taking a white and a red. become cursed to prevent gaining all Elder Signs from a single source. Okay. The investigators will then discard a yellow at the ceremony to move down to the streets of Arkham, putting out another investigator, and I would get raided immediately if I had any investigators here, but I don't, so joke's on them. At the other world, I'm going to discard a Dark Pact on a green to move down to the Gathering. Cultist and an investigator. We'll try again for temporary control, which I don't get. I'll get 3 cultists back from the Abyss, and then I'll move 1 up to the other world. With green, white, wild, I am going to go ahead and use the gates to prepare my power surge. Everything there is gone. And then I will draw 2 cards. 1, 2. Both of these are on a red, so first I will find Mind Switch, taking a blue and a green. Swap one of your cultists from any one location with any other cultist at a different location. I'm ruling I can use that to swap with a cult with an investigator. And Broken Seal, taking 3 red. We saw this earlier. Speaking of red, the investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a red to move up to the library and place an investigator. What do we want to do here? Excuse me. I will discard 2 blue, which will let me move anywhere. I'll move over to the ceremony, which will pull these 3 investigators onto my lodge. Then I put out a cultist and an investigator. And now I control the location outright, so now I get to trigger. So now I get a stronger version of the action. I'll get a gate card, and then I will roll at the museum. Actually, no, let's roll at the streets of Arkham. Actually, no, I think the museum's fine. Okay, so we get to move the 3 investigators. We'll move them to the streets of Arkham. I'll dogpile that, and then I'll pull a cultist back to my lodge. And now, as a stronger version of, since I have control of the ceremony, I can sacrifice 2 cultists to advance 1 on Yig's summon track. Are there any spells that I want to cast right now? I think the answer to that is going to be not yet, and I don't think I'd be able to prepare anything with white, green, yellow anyway, so that actually kind of works out. We draw 2 cards because, remember, it was Wizard's Grimoire. On a red, Yig will find, which is cursed, taking a blue and a yellow. Choose a cult, that cult becomes cursed. And on a yellow, Alhazred's Vengeance. Reveal, taking blue, white, green. Reveal when another cult takes an action that places at least 1 cultist or 1 investigator on your lodge. That cult becomes cursed. That looks like movement fodder to me. Speaking of movement, the investigators will discard a white at the library, trying to move to the ceremony, except we're already there. So they move up to the other worlds, place an investigator, and Yig takes his first curse. 5 curses, says Yig loses the game, doesn't get summoned, and that's actually bad in terms of tiebreakers. But I will go ahead and cast Gate to the Past at the end of any other cult's turn. So I'll sacrifice 2 cultists and take the basic action at the investigator's fate piece location, which is the other worlds. So we get 4 dice there to try to move on Yig's summoning track. Unfortunately, we don't get the Cthulhu action because we don't get to take the control action. It only specifies take the basic action. And we still get total garbage out of Yig's rolls. Wow. Apparently, Yig doesn't want to take center stage in Christmas in Arkham this year. Who knew? He's probably really not going to want to take center stage with whatever his next play is going to be. Ugh. These are all pretty terrible. Well, I think depending on where I move my fate piece, I've got a pretty good chance of just getting raided this turn. Actually, no, I can stay away from getting raided this turn. Let's see, what's up at the library? Red, blue, white, yellow. Red, blue, white, yellow. Yeah, that's probably fine. So we'll discard a broken seal at the ceremony to move up to the library, placing a cultist and an investigator. We'll roll for temporary control. Which we don't get. Yig's rolls have been absolutely terrible this morning. We'll draw 3 spell cards, and we get to ready an additional spell using the same astral column. So if it becomes relevant here, and it's very likely... Actually, I don't want to just use Power Surge here. I'll explain how it works, even though I don't think it's going to be relevant. So on a red Yig, we'll find Sign of the Brotherhood, taking 2 blue and a green. We saw this earlier. On a white, Shadow Walk, taking 2 yellow and a blue. At the end of your turn, you may sacrifice a cultist and become cursed to immediately take another turn. And on a blue, Alhazred's Vengeance, taking green, white, red. We saw this earlier. So with being able to take the library's location action, we can ready a second spell, but the astral column won't get cleared until we're done preparing spells. And I think here we will prepare... yes, we actually can do both of these. So we'll prepare and immediately cast a Mind Switch. So I'll switch from any one location. So I'll swap this cultist at the streets of Arkham with another investigator from the other worlds. Then I'll go ahead and prepare and immediately cast a Witch's Curse to get rid of this one curse Yig's got on him. And now, having prepared 2 spells, now the astral column at the library gets swept clear. 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'm drawing 1 card. On a yellow Yig, we'll find Necessary Evil, taking a purple and a blue to prepare. Gain 2 Elder Signs or retreat 1 on your summon track to destroy all curses on you. All right, up at the other worlds, the investigators will discard a red, trying to move to the library. We're there already, so they move back to the other worlds, which gives Yig his first curse once again. I think Yig at the library will discard a blue to move over to the museum, placing a cultist and an investigator. Temporary control doesn't really do anything for us right now. And given our terrible rolling at the other worlds, I think I want a little bit of mitigation, so we're going to take the Enchanted Cane for that. And replacing that, the Necronomicon. When you gain this artifact, become cursed. Exhaust to add a wild for readying a spell. Discard to move the fate piece to another location. We may have to risk a curse here. But what's Yig doing with a blue and 3 white? He's going to prepare and immediately cast a rack, which will let him destroy a cultist from any location or lodge. We'll go ahead and take it off of his lodge. All 3 of the white go away. And then we are drawing 1 card. We're drawing up to 5. So on a green Yig, we'll find Gate, taking a blue and a red. At the start of your turn, draw a gate card, regardless of whether you have a gate card already. During the move phase of your turn, you have to use this gate card for movement. All right, from the other worlds, the investigators are discarding a yellow to move down to the streets of Arkham, and then we immediately get raided with 2 investigators on our lodge. So 2 dice. We want to see tentacles or Cthulhu's on this roll. So, of course, we see 2 elder signs. The only consolation, though, is that the 2 investigators on our lodge leave, but not before we get 2 elder signs. So the elder signs are actually moving in reverse of how our summon track is moving, which is not great at all. Now the question is, do I want to try again on the summon? And I think the answer there is yes, I am going to try again. So we'll discard our gate at the museum to move up to the other world, which will immediately pull these 3 cultists in. Placing a cultist and an investigator. Since we have 6 cultists there, we definitely control the location outright. So we will get the roll here in a minute. I'm just deciding if I want to use cubes of power for this, and I think the answer is no. If I was going for the game, I probably would, but since I'm not, I'll just stick with 6 dice, and hopefully that will let me make some good progress on the summoning track. Okay, that's a bit more like it. That means we get to sacrifice 3 cultists, but they would go to the Abyss, but because we rolled Cthulhu's with control, they come back to our lodge, and we move 1, 2, 3 on Yig's summoning track. And then looking at our spells, we've got wild, yellow, green, red. Wild, yellow, green, red. I think I will prepare a find gate, which means everything gets swept clear. And then we will draw on a green, Yig will find. And Thrall taking 2 yellow. Choose a location that another cult controls. Destroy 2 of their cultists from that location. Okay. The investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a red to move up to the library. Well, I know one location that I am never going to again in this game. That would be down here at the streets of Arkham. That's just asking to get Yig sealed away. So instead, let's see, do I want to go to, unless I use the ceremony to potentially work on sweeping that clear, which I could, do something to it, which I could do. Plus that would give me another gate card. Let's see, I really want to keep that Shadow Walk, though, but I think these 2 yellow, Necessary Evil and Alhazred's Vengeance, are not that good. So I think I will discard those 2 yellow to move. I'm tempted by the Necronomicon, but let's go with that plan. Let's go down to the ceremony, which will put a cultist and an investigator out. We get all of these dice out, except for the one that we're going to roll for temporary control, which we don't get. We do get the gate, and we are going to choose the streets of Arkham for Carpet of Serpents. So we get 5 dice in there. And let's see what we can do with this roll. We wanted to see elder signs. So we only get 1. Let's move 1 investigator over to the museum. Fortunately, we didn't have any cultists to return there. We didn't get temporary control, so we don't get to do anything there. we wouldn't have been able to prepare a spell anyway. So now we're drawing 2 cards. 1, 2. On a yellow, Yig will find Gate to the Past, taking 2 green and a red. And on a green, Witch's Curse, taking a white and a red. The investigators at the library will discard a green to move down to the gathering. I need to be very aware of the supply of investigators. Let's see. We have 3 there. I'm thinking what I want to do here. Fortunately, these 2 greens aren't that good, so I could use actually, let's use Sign of the Brotherhood instead. Or do I want to do that? Yeah, I think we'll use Sign of the Brotherhood at the ceremony to move over to the library. I am going to get raided, but I think at this point we need to try to get some cultists back in the supply, so I don't have to bite the bullet on that. Or some investigators. So cultist, investigator. We will... Do I want control of the location? Because I do have a power surge that I could use to get control of the location outright. And I think I do want to use it. So I will use power surge until the end of my turn to control my current location. Which means I'll draw 3 spells. And now I can ready I can ready a spell at no additional cost. Plus, because I have control of the library, I can also sacrifice a cultist from there to ready a spell at no cost. So on a blue, I will find Rack, taking 2 yellow. Then on a green, find a command, which is basically movement fodder, taking purple and white. Move a monster in a location or lodge to any other location or lodge. Then on a white, Necessary Evil, taking a purple and a yellow. That is not that great. Let's see. So with blue, green, red, nothing there I can prepare, so it'll just be... So I think it'll just be... I think it'll just be sacrifice a cultist to prepare and immediately cast Shadow Walk. To prepare Shadow Walk, technically. And then that was prepared for no cost, so I don't have to worry about anything there. Then on a white, I will draw Rack, taking 2 blue. Then I'll go ahead and cast the Shadow Walk, so I can sacrifice a cultist, presumably from anywhere, and become cursed, which is Yig's second curse, to immediately take another turn. Well, before I do that, though, I do get raided with 6 investigators. So we do have another turn coming out of this, but first we've got a raid to deal with. Let's see how this is going to go for Yig. Very disgustingly from the looks of it. So 3 cultists leave, 1 each because of the tentacle and the Cthulhu's. Another one leaves with a lesser elder sign, but because of the greater elder signs, 2 stay. So I end up taking a total of 3 more elder signs. Which is a problem because the first time the summon progress meets the elder signs, Yig is going to take another curse. Thankfully, that only happens once per game. So that does put some investigators back in the supply. But now, Yig is very much in deep trouble because now he's got 5 elder signs. And elder signs are actually the first tiebreaker in the tournament. So we can't go to the gathering. Actually, we could have used the enchanted cane to try to mitigate some of that damage, but we needed to get some investigators in the supply. Another question here is, do we just... Going to the streets of Arkham now would be a total tap-out play for Yig. So I'm going to try not to do that. I think what we're going to do here is we're going to use 2 green to move at the library to move over to the museum. Cultist, investigator, temporary control. No. We will take the Necronomicon, but that'll give Yig his 3rd curse. And then replacing the Necronomicon in the artifact display, there's the Shining Trapezohedron. You may hold up to 2 gate cards. Exhaust when another cult moves to the ceremony to draw 1 gate card. Let's see. With a blue and a wild, I think we'll use the wild as a blue to prepare and immediately cast Rack to destroy a cultist from any one location or lodge. It's not really doing much of the streets of Arkham, but we might as well do something, right? So the gate card's gone. On a yellow, Yig will find Broken Seal, taking 3 yellow. Destroy any 1 elder sign. You may sacrifice the cultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. All right, the investigators are discarding a green at the gathering, trying to move to the gathering, but they're there already. So they'll go up to the other worlds instead and put out a cultist. Well, I think here, pretty much any raid right now is dangerous because Yig is already at 5 elder signs. So let's see, what do I have at the gathering? 2 blue, 2 green. There's not... Well, I could go to the library. I would need to keep the gate to the past, though, and unfortunately the only way I can get there is by playing 2 yellow. So right now for movement, my blue is dead. Well, I could use my gate, which I think I will do that. I want to get over to the library, preferably while holding on to the gate to the past, since I can prepare it at the library, and I've got a spell slot available for it. So first we need to see if I get temporary control of the library. I do not. Drawing 3 spell cards. 1, 2, 3. All right, we've got a red first, so Yig will find on a red. Command, taking purple and green, which is basically useless. On a yellow, corruption, taking green and white. Either sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge or become cursed. Then you may advance 1 on the summon track or destroy 2 elder signs from your lodge. And also on a yellow, Call of the Wicked Ones, taking a red and 2 blue. Summon a monster and become cursed. Okay, we've got a red, 3 green, and a blue. Let's see what we're doing with that. Red, 3 green, and a blue. Let's go ahead and prepare a gate to the past. And unfortunately, that's the only spell we're going to be able to prepare. So everything there is gone. On a white, Yig will find Dark Pact, taking a green and a yellow. Become cursed to prevent gaining all elder signs from a single source. At the other worlds, the investigators will discard a yellow to move down to the streets of Arkham, placing an investigator, and we immediately get raided with 2 dice. I keep forgetting I've got the Necronomicon that I could be using to ready spells. Derp. Anyway, our raid goes very well as the investigators leave without being able to do anything. So presumably our cult is able to drive them away. What to do here? I think here we will... I'm going to use... Actually, before we do that... No, that's not helpful. Okay, yeah, we'll probably be using Find Gate here. I'm just looking at my options here. Yep. We are going to go ahead and cast Find Gate. So we'll get a gate card that we have to use for movement, which I think we're going to go up to the other worlds with that. We need to get over to the Gathering very soon, though, even at the risk of potentially getting raided. And then we control the other worlds outright. So we will be able to... So any Cthulhus will bring the cultists back. Wow, that was absolutely terrible. So we sacrifice 1 to advance 1 on the summon track, but because that brought us to our Elder Signs, Yig also takes his 4th curse. So with 3 yellow up there, Yig is going to prepare and immediately cast Broken Seal to destroy an Elder Sign. He'll sacrifice a cultist up at the other worlds to destroy another one. And because we've taken the curse from meeting Yig's Elder Sign from Yig's summon process meeting his Elder Sign progress, we won't take another curse from that in this playthrough. On a red, Yig will draw. Enlighten the Faithful, taking blue, white, yellow. At the end of your turn, you may move up to 3 of your cultists from any one location to any other location. Okay, let me just make sure I'm pretty sure his hand size is plenty. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so yeah, he had already 5 spell cards in hand. At the Streets of Arkham, Yig will discard a blue, move over to the museum, and put out an investigator. This is problematic. So I think here, do we have a green? I think we do. Yep, so I will use the Witch's Curse at the other worlds on a green to move down to the Gathering, which will pull these cultists into my lodge. Place a cultist and an investigator. Rolling for temporary control. Nope. So I gain 3 back from the Abyss and send 1 to the other worlds. Then with 2 green and 2 blue, I can't prepare anything. Then on a green, Yig will draw. Mind Switch, taking a red and a blue. At the museum, the investigators will discard a blue, trying to move to the museum, but they're already there. So they'll move to the other worlds and put an investigator out. And now it's the end of the turn, where we have no cultists in this, or no investigators in the supply. So now I immediately get raided with 4 dice. Actually, could I have prepared anything if I would be remembering I've got the Necronomicon? Let me try this again. Would I be able to prepare anything useful? Yes, actually I would be able to prepare. So I'll pretend I exhausted the Necronomicon to prepare and immediately cast a Mind Switch, bringing a cultist from the library to the other worlds, and 1 to the library, and an investigator to the library. So all of that's gone, and the Necronomicon's exhausted, but we've got our aforementioned 4 dice raid. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Okay, so 3 of them leave. 1 stays, but we're going to end up with 3 Elder Signs. 1, 2, and 3. That's not great. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Well, we can't... Is there anywhere we can prepare here? Or anything we can prepare that's going to help. I'm going to discard a command at the gathering to move up to the library. Taking these 3 investigators, cultist, investigator. I do kind of want temporary control of the location, which I don't get, but I do get to draw 3 spells and ready an additional one with the same column. So 1, 2, 3. On a red, alter fate, taking a yellow and a white. On a red, enlighten the investigators. Cast when a cult discards a monster token, that cult places 2 investigators in their lodge. And on a green, sign of the Brotherhood. Let's see, so with a red and a wild. Let's see, red and a wild. The only thing I can prepare that even takes red is Call of the Wicked Ones, but that's an absolutely terrible idea. Actually, let's actually go ahead and exhaust the Necronomicon to add a wild. And then I'll use the wild that's there to prepare and immediately cast Corruption. I have to sacrifice 2 cultists from the lodge, because if I take a 5th curse, Yig is done. So I can either advance 1 on the summon track or destroy 2 Elder Signs. I'm going to destroy 2 Elder Signs. That way Yig takes a little bit less tiebreaker damage. And then on a white, Yig will find Sign of the Brotherhood again. The investigators at the other worlds will discard a what? Oh, nope, we don't get raided. Never mind. We'll discard a white to move down to the ceremony. Now at the end of this turn, though, we will get raided. We're probably going to get raided regardless. But I think Yig is going to have to go for it here to try to get summoned. So he will discard 2 white at the library. We didn't have a Find Gate prepared, did we? We're probably going to use Cubes of Power up at the other worlds, though. Actually, I don't have the 2 cultists to sacrifice for Gates of the Past, so never mind. But yes, we will discard Sign of the Brotherhood and a Necessary Evil at the library to move up to the other worlds. We'll take these 3 cultists in. Cultist, Investigator. I'm going to gamble that we'll make this summon here, because it helps that we have control of the location outright, and I'm going to add Cubes of Power. That means I get 2 additional dice. I've got 5 for the cultists there, plus 2 more for a total of 7. This has been a long playthrough for Yig. We need 4 of these to be summons of some kind, and since we have control, we also would get to return cultists to the lodge for every Cthulhu we roll. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that actually works out. We get to sacrifice all 5 cultists. 2 would come back to the lodge. 1, 2, 3, 4. So Yig does get summoned, but what a terrible performance by Yig. So I'll make a note in my spreadsheet. So Yig did get summoned. 4 Elder Signs and 4 Curses. By far the worst performance so far of any Ancient One in Christmas in Arkham. But so far that is the standard. So as usual, I'll put the stream into Be Right Back while I reset the board for the next Ancient One. I will be around to interact with chat as usual, though, so feel free to chip in with any questions you might have in chat. So, going into be right back. That was a long play for Yig. Hopefully our other two ancient ones are going to be a bit faster than that. Anyway, let's start by revealing our artifacts. So first up for our next ancient one is the Necronomicon once again, which could be a tempting idea, but let's see what other options we've got. Next, our other starting option is the Skull of Lore. Exhaust to roll a die. On a Cthulhu, discard it and advance one on your summon track. Greater Elder Sign, become cursed. Then our monster reserve. First option, the Bayaki. Upon summoning, gain a gate card and place the Bayaki on any location. On your turn, you may discard a token to move the Bayaki into any 2 cultists at its current location to any other location. And Deep Ones. Upon summoning, place 1 Deep One on 3 different locations. On your turn, you may remove 1 token to choose a location occupied by a Deep One and destroy 1 investigator or cultist at that location. Deep Ones count as 1 investigator for purposes of control, but can't be sacrificed. Special is, of course, not a thing when we're talking about the solo game. And our second ancient one for this play-in group is the namesake of the mythos himself, Cthulhu. His dark gift, the stars are right. Move 1 of your cultists from the ceremony to any 1 location. Then destroy all investigators or cultists, or 1 cultist of each other cult at that location. As for Cthulhu's starting spells, we've got a green to start with. So first choice is Mind Switch, taking a red and a blue. Swap one of your cultists from a location with an investigator. That's how I house rule it for the solo game. Then we've got 2 blue to choose from. Transmogrify, taking a blue, a red, and a green. And Enthrall, taking 2 white. Now that we're all set, let's go ahead and get into this play for Cthulhu. So we'll use a blue to move over to the museum. Placing a cultist and an investigator. We'll roll for temporary control, which Cthulhu won't get. I will pick up the Necronomicon, and I'll actually remember to use it this time. Cthulhu picks up his first curse. And replacing that will be Scepter of the Elders. Exhaust, sacrifice 1 cultist from any location to flip 1 of your dice to the opposite face. All right, with a blue and a white, I think I will exhaust the Necronomicon to add a wild for readying a spell, and I'll immediately prepare and cast Mind Switch. So I'll swap a cultist at the museum with the investigator there. All right, and I did take Cthulhu's curse. Okay, and then Cthulhu is drawing 2 cards. So first up on a white, he'll find Necessary Evil, taking purple and a yellow. Gain 2 Elder Signs or retreat 1 on your summon track to destroy all curses on you. And on a green, Witch's Curse, taking white and a red. Choose a cult, that cult becomes cursed, or I'm ruling for the solo game, you can use that to remove a curse. The investigators are discarding a red at the streets of Arkham to move up to the library and place an investigator. Let's see. Cthulhu will use a green, will use the Witch's Curse at the museum to move over to the gathering, placing a cultist and an investigator. Rolling for temporary control, which he doesn't get. I will remember to unexhaust the Necronomicon. So he'll gain 3 cultists back from the Abyss and move 1 up to the other worlds. Then with green, white, wild, we're not going to do anything with that. On a red, Cthulhu will find Broken Seal, taking 3 red. Destroy any 1 Elder Sign. You may sacrifice an occultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. The investigators will then discard a red at the library, trying to move there, but they're there already, so they'll move up to the other worlds instead and put a cultist out. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and discard a Necessary Evil at the gathering to move over to the ceremony. Cultist and an investigator. I don't care about temporary control because I'm going to be moving one of these cultists over to another location. So I do gain a gate card, and I will move a cultist to... Let's move it up to the other worlds, and we'll destroy the investigator there. Keep that in check. Then we'll use the 2 white there. Go ahead and prepare and enthrall. I don't need the Necronomicon because I've already got the symbols I need there to prepare it. Then Cthulhu will draw 2 yellows. So first he will draw Coerce the Innocent, taking a blue, or taking white, green, red. Move up to 2 investigators from any one location or lodge to any lodge. And Corruption, taking a green and a white. Either sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge or become cursed. Then you may advance 1 on the summon track or destroy 2 elder signs from your lodge. At the other worlds, the investigators will discard a red to move to the library and put an investigator out. Is Cthulhu going to use his gate for movement to maybe go up to the other worlds and start working on summon? I think the answer to that is... yes. He'll discard his gate to move up to the other worlds. He'll put a cultist out and an investigator, and we control the location outright, so we get the control action at the other the control effect at the other worlds. Lid is over here, so we get 5 dice, and we get to make some progress on Cthulhu's summon track. Well, hopefully, and we do. We actually had to sacrifice 3 cultists to move up 3 on Cthulhu's summon track. Then with green, or with red, blue, yellow, wild. Red, blue, yellow, wild. I'm going to exhaust the Necronomicon to add a wild, and I'll prepare Broken Seal in case I start picking up elder signs like crazy. So all of that's gone. Then on a green, Cthulhu will find gate, taking a red and a white. At the start of your turn, draw a gate card regardless of whether you have one already. During the move phase of your turn, you must use this gate card for movement. Okay, speaking of movement, the investigators at the library will discard a green to move to the gathering. Let's see, what do I want to do here? I will... let's see, I think I've got spells prepared that I don't really need right now. So I think I'll go ahead and use a... I'll go ahead and use a yellow at the other worlds to move down to the streets of Arkham. I don't really need the... I'm moving down here mostly for the astral symbols. I don't particularly need control of the location, and I believe that's only coming off of the lodge. Yes, okay. So I don't have any investigators to pull off. I mostly wanted the astral symbols there because I'm going to use the red and the white to prepare a find gate. I don't need to cast it immediately. Yes. So now we're drawing 2 cards. On a green, Cthulhu will find Dark Pact, taking red and white. I'd also unexhaust the Necronomicon. And on a red, we find Alhazred's Vengeance. We saw this earlier, and it's basically useless. Well, there's no basically about it. It is useless. At the gathering, the investigators will discard a green, trying to move to the gathering, but they're already there, so they'll move up to the other worlds instead. Now I'll go ahead and cast Enthrall to choose a location that another cult controls, destroy 2 of their investigators from that location. I'll pick them off the gathering. mainly because looking here, mainly because at the Streets of Arkham, I am going to discard a green to move over to the Gathering, placing a cultist and an investigator. Let's see if I get temporary control of the location. I do not. I'll gain 3 cultists back and move 1 up to the other worlds. Then with a green and a... With 2 green and 2 red and 2 white, I will prepare and immediately cast Corruption. So all of that's gone, which means I can either sacrifice 2 cultists from my lodge, which I will do, to advance 1 on the summon track. And then I'm drawing 2 cards here. So first up on a green, I will find Coerce the Innocent. And on a blue, Witch's Curse, taking a yellow and a green. The investigators of the other worlds will discard a yellow to move down to the Streets of Arkham, putting an investigator out, and I still have no investigators to get raided with, so joke's on them. Let's see. Next order of business is going to be discarding a red at the Gathering to move up to the library, and now I will have cultists come in, but there's nothing I can do about that. Investigator, or cultist investigator. Let's see if I get temporary control of the location. I do get control of the location, so I can not only ready an additional spell using the same column, but now I can sacrifice a cultist there to ready a spell for no cost. 1, 2, 3. All right, so first up on a green, we find a Transmogrify taking white and yellow. That's mitigation, essentially. On a blue, Call of the Wicked Ones, which is basically useless, taking green and 2 white. And on a red, we've got Gate to the Past, taking 2 blue and a white. So we're not preparing that there, unless we use the no cost option, which we very easily could. I will use the Astral Column, though, to prepare and immediately cast a Witch's Curse, so I can get rid of this curse off of Cthulhu. And then using the same column, I will prepare... Actually, no, I won't. I'll sacrifice a cultist to prepare a Gate to the Past for free. That's what we'll do there. Right, so the Astral Column's gone because I did use it. And then on a green, Cthulhu will find Confound, taking a blue and 2 yellow. Okay, that's not total garbage. At the Streets of Arkham, the investigators will discard a blue to move to the museum. Okay, I will use 2 green at the library to move down to the ceremony, which will let me put a cultist and an investigator out. Once again, I don't care about temporary control because I'm not going to be leaving an investigator there. Because I will be moving an investigator up to the other worlds and destroying all investigators there. Let's see. Then with a... I do get a gate as well. I forgot about that. Let's see. I don't think I have anything I can cast right now. No. And nothing I need there. So I think we are all fine there. So I will draw on a red. Cthulhu will find Cubes of Power, taking blue and green. When you're rolling dice, add 2 additional dice to the roll. The investigators at the museum are going to discard a green to move over to the Gathering and put a cultist out. So now we have an option available to us where we could go for game, potentially. Actually, do we want to sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge? Okay, so yes, we will go ahead and cast Gate to the Past here, which I can sacrifice 2 cultists from my lodge to essentially get 3 back and move 1 to a location. So I get to take the basic action at the location. And here I think Cthulhu will go for game. So he's going to cast Find Gate. So we'll draw a gate card at the ceremony that I have to use for movement, which will move him up to the other worlds. 6th cultist out, and an investigator. All right, which means Cthulhu has 6 dice he's rolling on this. 5 of them have to be summons for Cthulhu to get into a very advantageous place in this last play-in group. Let's see what Cthulhu can roll. He's also got control, so that brings any... So Cthulhu's will bring any cultist back. Let's see what we roll, though. Total bubkus. So we sacrifice 1 and advance 1 on Cthulhu's track. That was very unfortunate. But what we will do here, though, is we'll exhaust the Necronomicon for another wild and use the Astral Column to prepare cubes of power. And now we've got a gate card so we can move back. We can move back to the other worlds next time we need to. On a white, Cthulhu will draw Rack, taking 2 blue. Okay. The investigators at the gathering will discard a white to move down to the ceremony. As for our turn, is there anywhere we can go and avoid getting raided? I think the answer to that is no. Unless I use the gate. I could use the gate to go to the library and potentially draw more cards. So I have more wild options available to me. I think that's our safest play right now. I don't want to get Cthulhu raided. And if I know I'm drawing at least 1 white, and I don't completely like the white I've got in my hand. So let's move over to the library. Cultist, investigator. Let's see if I can get temporary control of the location. I cannot. But I can draw 3 cards, and I'm readying an additional spell using the red and 2 green that's there. On a white, Cthulhu will find Call of the Wicked Ones. So, yep, I could use the whites for movement very easily. On a blue, Sign of the Brotherhood, taking red and 2 blue. I've definitely got options here. Necronomicon is unexhausted. On another blue, Shadow Walk, 2 red and a white. At the end of your turn, sacrifice a cultist and become cursed to immediately take another turn. I don't think I can prepare anything particularly useful with that. And I've got all kinds of movement options here, especially if I count using gates for movement. So yeah, I think we're just not going to prepare anything here. On a green, Cthulhu will find Call of the Wicked Ones again. We've got more options than we know what to do with. The investigators, though, are discarding a red at the ceremony to try to move to the library, except we're there already, so they move to the other worlds instead. Taking an investigator, Cthulhu takes a curse. We may have to gamble on a raid here, unfortunately. Yeah, because anywhere we go, we're going to end up getting raided here. So I think we'll just bite the bullet on this one. Yes. We will discard a white at the library to move down to the ceremony. We're very much getting raided here at the end of the turn. Right, we do have... Okay. Cultist, investigator. I don't care about temporary control again because I'm going to be using the cultist there. Probably going to be using the cultist there to stop some of the damage from this raid. I get a gate card. I'll move a cultist up to the other worlds and destroy the investigators there. Then with essentially 3 wild because of the Necronomicon, white, red. I do have one more cultist that I can place. So I'm thinking here. Yeah, we will go ahead and prepare Shadow Walk. Everything there's gone. That's gone as well. And then Cthulhu on a green will draw. Ooh. The stars are right, taking a red and 2 blue. First things first, Cthulhu's getting rated with 7 dice. This could be very problematic. We're kind of playing a little bit fast and loose here because Jaeger had a terrible run. But let's see what happens here. Wow. Okay, so 4 cultists leave, or 4 investigators leave, but that's 3 greater elder signs. That is a very disgusting result if you're Cthulhu. So that's 3 elder signs. Gross, gross, gross. Okay, so now I'm going to cast Broken Seal, which will let me destroy an elder sign, and I'll sacrifice a cultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. That's very fortunate. And do I want to cast Shadow Walk right now? I think the answer to that is a pretty hard no, because I want to be able to get over to the Gathering, even though that's going to give me more elder signs. Unless I just want to go for game on my next turn. Unless I want to just go for game on my next turn, and that's probably going to be the play. Unfortunately, Cthulhu is going to end up with his second curse. Actually, no, he's not. Well, I'm looking at the card, but that's actually the color Cthulhu's drawing. So Cthulhu actually won't end up with his second curse. On a white, he'll find artifact, taking a green and a yellow. Okay, that's not total garbage. The investigators at the other worlds will discard a red to move over to the library and place a cultist and place an investigator. I think Cthulhu's got to go for game here. He's going to end up with 1 more curse from getting up to his summon progress, but he's going to use the gate to move up to the other worlds, placing his last cultist and an investigator. Cthulhu needs 4 more on his summon track, and he's got 7 dice to roll at this. But I'm going to add, just to make sure there's no funny business with Cthulhu's roll, I'm going to add cubes of power to give him 2 additional dice. So he's actually rolling a total of 9 dice. 4 of these need to be summons for Cthulhu to get summoned, and basically eliminate Yig from this play-in group. Oop. Let's roll that through, but I'm pretty sure we got cocked dice here. I'm going to see if I can re-roll and get most of them flat. I don't think that's going to be a thing I can do with rolling this many dice. That was an absolutely terrible roll. So Cthulhu will sacrifice 2 cultists. 1 will come back to the lodge. I think he was in the abyss. And Cthulhu will advance 2 more on the summon track. That was extremely unfortunate. So Cthulhu's at 7 on the summon track right now. Looking at the spells, he's got a wild and a red. 2 wild and a red, actually. He's going to prepare and cast The Stars Are Right. He's going to take back... He's going to gain 2 cultists from the abyss. I was thinking about maybe getting rid of this elder sign, but I think pulling cultists back so he doesn't take an elder sign penalty is probably going to be more important. And then on a blue, Cthulhu will find Cubes of power again, taking a white and a blue. The investigators at the library are discarding a red, except they're already there, trying to move to the other worlds, but we're there, so they move to the streets of Arkham next, and giving Cthulhu his second curse. Let's see, I'll discard a... Yikes, this is problematic. I'm going to discard a white at the other worlds to move down to the ceremony. Taking a gate card, cultist, investigator. I don't care about temporary control here because the cultist isn't staying. I took the gate card. We'll move him to the other worlds and destroy the investigator. With wild, we will use that as a... We'll use the gate symbol as a wild blue, and we'll prepare cubes of power again. Then on a blue, Cthulhu will find enlighten the investigators, taking a red and a white. The investigators at the streets of Arkham are discarding a red to move to the library and placing a cultist. And we're going to run the play back of moving up to the ceremony. Cultist, investigator. We've got 9 dice once again at this. This time we need 2 of them to be summons. Cthulhu will still end up in a very strong position because despite having 3 curses, he'll only have 1 elder sign, and the elder signs are the first tiebreaker in case every ancient one gets summoned. And okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's every cultist sacrificed. Well, it doesn't really matter that they're going flying here because I'm going to be setting the board in a second. 2 back to Cthulhu's Lodge. He will get summoned. Cthulhu will end up with his 3rd curse, though. So I'll just update that on the spreadsheet. So yes, 1 elder sign, 3 curses. The ancient ones so far are not doing great work on their play-ins here. But once again, I'll go ahead and reset the board. We'll go into Be Right Back. I'll reset the board, and then we'll be back with our last ancient one of this play-in group. Okay, we have our last ancient one all set to go for his play-in group. First up, let's look at our starting artifacts. Our first choice here is the Wizard's Grimoire. We saw Yig use that to, well, he was happy with it, but not with his performance. Other option is Chamber's Journal. We saw that earlier, it kind of lingered as one of our options. Now we have to look at the monster reserve. Our first choice for a monster is the Dark Young. On your turn, you may discard one token to place Dark Young on a location. Move all investigators there to any one adjacent location, then roll 3 dice. For each tentacle, destroy a cultist, which will be investigators. For each Cthulhu, destroy 2, but investigators can't be placed or moved into a location occupied by a Dark Young. Or Deep Ones, which we saw earlier. Our last ancient one in this play-in group, and actually for the play-in round of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, is Yog-Sothoth. His dark gift is the key in the gate. Look at any one spell card from any location's astral column. You may choose to ready that spell at no cost or discard it, and spells readied this way don't count toward Yog-Sothoth's spell limit. Let's bring the investigator's fate piece down to the streets of Arkham. And looking at Yog-Sothoth's starting hand, on a yellow he will have Witch's Curse, taking a green and a white, I should say. Then we've got 2 on a white. Alhazred's Vengeance. Reveal when another cult takes an action that places at least one investigator on your lodge. That cult becomes cursed. And Necessary Evil. Gain 2, taking purple and yellow. Gain 2 Elder Signs or retreat 1 on your summon track to destroy all curses on you. Okay, I think with that, we are all set to get started. So Yog-Sothoth will discard an Alhazred's Vengeance to move down to the ceremony. Placing a cultist and an investigator. We'll put these all on Yog-Sothoth's lodge. Rolling for temporary control. Once I bring the tower into shot, Yog-Sothoth will get temporary control of the location. All right, gate, and I will look at, I'm going to look at this spell. The spell here is a Witch's Curse, taking a red and a blue, and I think I will go ahead and prepare that. And that's at no cost, so that doesn't count toward Yog-Sothoth's limit. And then I will sacrifice 2 cultists since I got temporary control of the location to advance 1 on Yog-Sothoth's summon track. To white, I'm not preparing anything there. So on a yellow, Yog-Sothoth will draw. Find artifacts, taking a blue and a red. Draw an artifact from the artifact deck. The investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a green to move over to the gathering and place an investigator. As for me, I'm going to discard 2 yellow at the ceremony to move over to the library, placing a cultist and an investigator. Try to move those over a little bit so I can get the dice tower in a bit more easily. See if we get temporary control of the location. We do, again. So I have an option to prepare a spell at no cost in case I draw something hella expensive but hella good. On a green, we will find Transmogrify, taking a red and a yellow. On a blue, Alhazred's Vengeance, that's garbage. Except for movement, maybe. On a white, find artifacts, taking a green and a yellow. Which I think I will go ahead and sacrifice a cultist and ready that at no cost. And since I didn't use the astral column stays. And then on a white, Yog-Sothoth will find Coerce the Innocent, taking green, blue, yellow. The investigators will then discard a green at the gathering to try to move to the gathering, but they're already there, so they'll move to the other worlds instead, putting out an investigator. Yog-Sothoth at the museum will discard a blue to move over to the museum. And I don't care about temporary control here because I don't have Elder Signs. What I care about, though, is getting my hands on this Wizard's Grimoire. Next artifact up. Here's the Forgotten Tome. Exhaust when another cult moves to the library, draw 2 spell cards. With the blue, we're not preparing anything there. So Yog-Sothoth on a yellow will find. Gate to the Past, taking a green and 2 white, or two green and a red. The investigators at the other worlds will discard a blue, moving to the museum, except they're already there. So they move right back to the other worlds, putting another investigator out, and Yog-Sothoth takes his first curse. Let's see, from the museum, Yog-Sothoth will discard a green. He'll discard his Transmogrify to move over to the Gathering. Actually, it should have been up to 5 cards, so we should have... I'll just draw 2 this turn. I'll just remember that. Cultist, Investigator. Temporary Control. Yog's been doing pretty good at this temporary control thing. But he won't get it there. He will get 3 cultists back from the Abyss, and 1 up to the other worlds. And then with 2 green and blue, he's not preparing anything, so we should have 2 cards here. On a white, he will find Rack, taking 2 blue. And on a blue, the Stars Are Right, taking white and 2 yellow. The investigators will discard a blue at the other worlds to move down to the museum and place another investigator. We have a gate card here that we could use for movement. But instead, I think we will... actually, we should probably use the gate card, which we will. So we'll discard that there to move to the library, because more cards is always a good thing. See if we get temporary control of the location here. Nope. Drawing 3 spells. On a red, command taking purple and green, and it has to be purple specifically. On a yellow, Call of the Wicked Ones, that's basically garbage. And on a green, Corruption, taking a blue and a white. All right, so we can ready an additional spell using the same column with 2 red and a blue. We are not preparing anything there. So on a red, Yog-Sothoth will find Enlighten the Faithful, taking blue, white, yellow. The investigators at the museum will discard a yellow to move down to the streets of Arkham and put out an investigator. What are we doing here, though, is the next question. I think here we're going to use... let's see. We've got 2 white, 2 yellow at the ceremony. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll use a necessary evil at the library to move down to the ceremony. Cultist, Investigator. We are going to trigger his... We don't care about the temporary control because we don't have enough cultists there to sacrifice. We will trigger his Dark Gift, though. We'll look at the yellow card up here. So let's see what spell we find here. That's a Broken Seal, which we will go ahead and prepare that. And actually, I'm going to use Yog-Sothoth's Witch's Curse to remove this curse from Yog-Sothoth. What other spell did I prepare? Was it something? Oh! I've actually got to find artifact that I'm going to use as well. So Yog-Sothoth will draw Amulet of Neferin-Ka. Exhaust to change a lesser elder sign to a tentacle. Discard it to change all. Okay. Then with 2 blue and or 2 white and 2 yellow, Yog-Sothoth will go ahead and prepare the stars aright. He doesn't need that right at the moment, but it's nice to have that. On a blue Yog-Sothoth, or on a white Yog-Sothoth, we'll find gate taking a green and a yellow. Okay. Then at the streets of Arkham, the investigators will discard a yellow, moving up to the other world since they're already at the streets of Arkham. Let's see. Next, that corruption's decent. But I think we're going to use it for movement. I think we're going to move over to the gathering. Cultist, investigator. Rolling for temporary control, which I don't get. I do once again get 3 cultists back and 1 up to the other worlds. And then with 2 green, blue, wild, I will use the wild as a red to prepare gate to the past. Then on a green, I will find an ancient stirring taking 3 green. Ooh. We could potentially get a little bit cheesy with this. The investigators will discard a green at the other worlds, trying to move to the gathering, except we're there already, so they'll move right back. And Yog-Sothoth will take his first curse. What do we want to do here, then? Let's use... that Forgotten Tome could be good, but not at the cost of getting rated with 6 dice. Actually, we could use a yellow here to potentially keep a raid at bay, which I think we will do, especially since our yellow card is garbage. Cultist, investigator, and even just taking 2 off the lodge is going to be big enough, but I will roll for temporary control, which I don't get, but again, 2 investigators off the lodge is big enough anyway. With 3 green and a yellow, I will go ahead and prepare a find gate, because I have one that takes that. All right, then on a green, Yog-Sothoth will find Dark Pact, taking a red and a white. Okay. Yog-Sothoth, or the investigators will discard a green to move down to the gathering. We have most every place that we can't go to without getting raided, but I think the supply of investigators is getting a little bit low. So I think... well, we can hold the elders. We can hold some of these elder signs at bay as well. So yeah, I think... actually, I think at the end of the turn, we're going to cast Gate to the Past. So I'll sacrifice 2 cultists from my lodge to gain 3 back, and then move 1 up to the other worlds. All right, so that's done. And then from the streets of Arkham, we'll use a gate to move up to the other worlds. We'll take these 4 cultists, 4 investigators in. We will be getting raided at the end of the turn, but I think the play here is... I've got a little bit of a plan here, and I think it's worth it. So first we get to see if we get any summon progress. 5 dice, 4 or 5 cultists. Yep, okay. Which, okay, we'll toss the Amulet of Nephrin Ka to change all of those lesser elder signs to tentacles. Which means I will get to sacrifice all 5 of the cultists, and Yog-Sothoth will advance 5 on his summon track. Meaning he's up to 6 already. And then with 3 green, I will go ahead and prepare an Ancient Stirring. I'm not going to cast it right away. I was tempted, but I'm not going to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then on a blue, I will find Witch's Curse, taking a yellow and a green. Yog-Sothoth, though, gets rated with 5 dice. Since we have 5 cultists, since we have 5 or more cultists or investigators on the lodge, Yog-Sothoth gets rated. All right, so all of them leave and only 1 Elder Sign. That could have gone a lot worse for Yog-Sothoth. I can guarantee you that. So 1 Elder Sign for Yog-Sothoth, which is actually not even a big problem because he's got ways to mitigate that, like this Stars Are Right. Actually, we'll use that. No, I think either way it's fine. We've got enough Elder Sign mitigation that Yog-Sothoth is probably close to being in the winners group. Anyway, getting ahead of myself a little bit, the investigators discarding a red at the gathering to move to the library and placing a cultist. Let's see, what do I want to do here? Actually, depending on how this goes, actually, we might be able to get clear of this pretty soon. So Yog-Sothoth is going to discard a white at the other worlds. Of course, the Innocence is not that useful. To move down to the ceremony, placing a cultist and an investigator. Let's see if we can get temporary control of the location. It might not matter, but I've got something of an idea here. We do get temporary control of the location. Okay, so that gives him a gate. And we'll let him look at a card. We'll look at this green card right here. So let's see what Yog-Sothoth finds here. He finds a corruption, which we might just win the game, actually, because we will ready that at no cost. I think Yog-Sothoth will be able to get clear of this here. Because, actually, will he? Not yet. But he's very close. He will sacrifice 2 cultists from the location to advance 1 on the... Actually, I think he does win here, actually. So he's going to cast Corruption as well, which will let him sacrifice 2 cultists from the lodge, or become cursed as the choice to advance another 1. Then he'll cast an Ancient Stir. Actually, before he does that, he will cast a Broken Seal to get rid of the Elder Sign. Now he'll cast an Ancient Stirring to advance 1 on the summon track, and Yog-Sothoth has been summoned with no Elder Signs and 1 curse. So yes, no Elder Signs, 1 curse. So because of tiebreakers, so every Ancient One got summoned in this year's tournament, but, yep, every Ancient One got summoned, and Yog-Sothoth will actually advance into the winners group because of tiebreakers, getting over top of Cthulhu. And that will do it for the play-in groups of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. Later this afternoon, we're going to have something sports-related on the channel, but I haven't decided what that something is going to be yet. Tomorrow morning, though, we will have the winners group in Christmas in Arkham to determine who this year's opponent will be in the campaign proper. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll have another game lined up as well, but again, haven't decided what that game will be yet. Stay tuned to the channel for news on that. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.